Walk into any diner or restaurant today, and for many of us, it's hard to imagine being turned away simply because of the color of our skin. And yet, that's exactly what was happening right here in Florida in February of 1960. WEDU producer and director Danny Bruno set out to tell the real-life story of what happened when everyday people in the Black community took a stand against that injustice, how they inspired allies in Tampa's white and Latino neighborhoods, and its lessons for all of us today.
My name is Danny Bruno, and I'm the director of WEDU PBS's new documentary, Triumph. This film is about the 1960 sit-ins that occurred in Tampa, Florida. We felt that it was a story that not too many people had heard of, so we wanted to bring light to this subject matter. One of the things I found most fascinating about this documentary was that it was multi-layered in the sense that we have the play When the Righteous Triumph, written by Mark E. Lieb, and we also have the history that that play is based on that we were also including in it. Both of those things together really helped bring this story to life.
I don't have to serve anyone I don't want to at this counter. That means colored like you either stand or get nothing.
So many people do not know about what happened on February 29, 1960 in Tampa, Florida.
Getting to tell this story on stage is so important.
There were basically two different worlds, one black and one white.
If you were African American, you were not allowed in movie theaters, public beaches, private restaurants, you name it.
So the young people decided, we're going to try some new things.
We are going to be treated like human beings when we want to eat and drink.
We felt that we deserved to sit at the lunch counters.
It's just our time to step up.
You've got to put up what Dr. King calls nonviolent resistance.
The nonviolent piece was quite important.
If they hit you, you don't hit back.
We are for justice and righteousness. That's what we stand for.
Leaders made sacrifice, students made sacrifice, and there's no regret.
If you want to make change, you can't give up.
It's just something I had to do, and I had to take those chances. That's what I did.
This story, which is largely unknown, needs to be told.
And that is just a small clip of WEDU's original documentary, Triumph. Arthenia, I'd like to start with you. Tell us what it was like to grow up as a little girl in this community at that time, and how do you think that those daily experiences shaped you to be the activist that you are today?
Well, we lived in a segregated society, so it was commonplace. We knew that Black people were not looked on as equals, but we also felt that we deserved to be treated like everybody else. And having been reared in Ybor City and Central Avenue, I had an opportunity to just get to know people across the spectrum. Black, white, Latino, straight, gay. So as a kid, that was all I knew. And I lived in that world until something happened and change occurred.
And what was that?
Well, I was...
you talked about witnessing something from your house, something that was happening across the street. The Ku Klux Klan was there?
Yes, I was born in Lakeland, Florida, and my father came home one day and said, pull the shades and lock the door, the Klan's coming. They're gonna march. So we did, but I was either 4 or 5 and I didn't understand what he meant. But I saw those men in those robes and those hoods, and I was frightened. And I asked my father, why are they doing this? And he said they're trying to intimidate us, make us afraid, and they don't like us just because of the color of our skin.
Fred, you have talked about the history of the Black community for so many years. Give us an idea, a sense of what life was like for African Americans in Florida during that era, and how Jim Crow laws and how the different aspects of segregation were part of everyday life.
Well, as Arthenia said, there were really two worlds. one black and one white. And we lived in the black world. We had glimpses of the white world. Occasionally we came in contact with people who were not black like we are, but for the most part, you know, we went to all black schools. All our teachers were black. All of the people in our neighborhood were black. We lived in segregated communities with a few exceptions. But for the most part, you know, we learned those rules from our parents. We learned what we could do, what we should not do, where we could go freely, where we had to be careful when we were in certain environments, because there were rules that black people had to follow if you wanted to get along in this society. But you know, it may sound strange saying this, but living in a segregated world, we became accustomed to certain things and we became comfortable, and we had a safe zone. It was called Central Avenue, where every man was a king and every woman was a queen, and we could walk with our heads held high. We were welcome everywhere. We could sit wherever we wanted, eat wherever we wanted, use the restroom wherever we wanted on Central Avenue.
But things changed once you stepped out of that world. Mark, I'd like to turn to you. You grew up in the Tampa Bay area. You attended Plant High School. What did it seems like your experience would have been very different from the ones that Arthenia and Fred have just described.
Yes, very different. The other side of the coin. I remember when I was 5 or 6 years old, which would have been around 1960, 1959, that my mother would take me to the Quick Check supermarket on Grand Central Boulevard, which is now Kennedy Boulevard, and I would see 2 water fountains. One said white, one said colored. I didn't understand it. It made no sense to me. Or I would go to a bathroom and there'd be one door that said white, one that said colored. This was all a confusion to me. My parents were Kennedy and Johnson liberals. Civil rights was always supported in our house. But I couldn't comprehend why in the world would there be 2 water fountains. When I was in junior high school at Wilson, the first black student in the whole school came. His name was James Blunt, and he was well treated. I don't think he was mistreated there. When I was in high school, there was more integration at Plant. This was between 1968 and 71. And even so, I was one of the valedictorians at the end of the year, of my senior year, and in my speech I said something about how positive it was that integration was happening in the schools. Afterwards, a man came over to me and he looked at me kind of harshly and he said, "Why do you want to start the Civil War all over again?" Just because I said it's a good thing that we're integrating.
What inspired you to write the stage play When the Righteous Triumph? And I do want to point out that those clips that we saw was from the stage play that was produced by Stageworks Theater. Beautiful job they've done.
That's right. Stageworks has a lot to do with it. I found Andrew T. Hughes's book, From Saloons to Steakhouses, A History of Tampa, and to my surprise, there was a chapter called A Place at the Table, and it was all about the sit-ins. I didn't know these sit-ins had existed. I grew up in Tampa not knowing it. I was fascinated. The idea for a play immediately came to me, and I thought, this will interest Carla Hartley over at Stageworks, I think. Went to Carla, and we sat down in the courtyard, and I said, "Carla, imagine a lunch counter. A black person comes to order a coffee, and they're turned away. Imagine that took place in Tampa, because it did. I want to write a play about it. I want you to commission it from me." She thought about it for about 3 minutes. She said, "I'll do it." And from there on, the play was written in 21, workshopped at Stageworks in 22, premiered in 23. We had a good, strong reaction from the audience, and then moved to the Straz with the help of Jim Davis, former Congressman Jim Davis, in 2025.
Shirley, I'd like to turn towards you. Your husband, the Reverend Lowry, was a civil rights community leader. He actually taught Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at Morehouse College in Atlanta. A lot of people don't realize that connection with the Reverend here in Tampa and the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. When he would talk about that time and his philosophy of activism and nonviolence, how would he describe it? Why did he feel that was so important for people to understand, not just do?
Well, Reverend was very passionate about black people, all people having the same rights, whether it was shopping, going to the beach, going to church, fair housing, education. Blacks should have the same great books that other schools have and that's why he wanted to be a part of the school board. He wanted to make sure that the education was fair across the board, that everyone had a seat at the table, if we can say, being able to experience the education, the shopping, the beach, the movies. So he was passionate from the beginning. Even as a young child, his father was a pastor for over 70 years at his own church. And so when Reverend came to Tampa, he became the NAACP president in 1957. So his support as he came in was not just to be the pastor of one of the oldest churches in Tampa, but to also be a help to all people, especially in the Black community.
And one of the things that are so powerful about having all of you here is the fact that you provide context to this moment in history. You know, anthropologists and sociologists always point to context, you know, placing the moment in history into the context of what was happening in the world at the time.